Hey, this is Seth with In Demand Career. I show people how to get life-changing jobs in digital marketing with no previous experience or education. And in this video, I want to talk to you about perfectionism and how to stop it, get over it, and just do the thing that you want to do. I want to give you really specific, empowering tips and a context to look at this from, and I want you to feel better after you've watched this video. I wrote an article earlier this year on Authority Mag with a very in-depth instructions on how to get over perfectionism. I actually got the article up here on my phone because I am actually going to use that. I'm using the tips in that article to help myself make this video. Because yes, even a YouTube influencer, a small one like me, experiences perfectionism, even when I make these videos. Anyone who gets in front of a camera, writes, creates, if you do anything in life, I think anything expressive, anything other than literally the most boring job where maybe you're at a factory and you're just stamping something. You know, if you're at a factory and you're just, stamping things or just doing a robotic action, it's you may still be a perfectionist, but I think it's whenever you do something creative or expressive or risky, perceived as risky to your mind, that perfectionism comes up. And you guys, especially if you're watching my channel, you want to better your lives, you want to improve yourselves, you want to get digital marketing skills, everybody runs into some level of perfectionism. So here is my take on perfectionism, how to get over it. First of all, I think perfectionism is a form of delusion. Delusion is defined as, I don't know if I have the definition here. Basically, it's like a disconnect from reality. That's the simplest way to put it. It's like there's reality, and then there's your interpretation of it, which is completely bonkers. And you see this all the time. You may have, let's say don't even look at yourself. Look at your really good friends. I bet you have a good friend who's awesome, wonderful, you love him or her, and they have these great qualities, but they don't see those qualities. It could be somebody who's dating someone who's not good enough for them, or somebody who's really good at music or singing and they're shy about it, or it could be you're a really good writer, but you think you're not good enough, so you don't do it. Those are all aspects of perfectionism. When it comes to my digital marketing course, you get people who are, I tell you, you get these skills, you learn how to help businesses, you don't have to do it perfectly, you're gonna help them. But some people just can't get over this idea that they have to be perfect, so they keep learning and learning in a very compulsive way. They don't really let themselves apply to jobs, they don't let themselves put themselves out there. And I'm sure you have your own experience with this. It's where your mind creates a fantasy about how life should be that fantasy and that delusion is never gonna be as good as the reality, because it's not real. And you find yourself constantly comparing reality to this fake, delusional, imagined reality. And I talk about this in my Perfectionism Equals Poverty video, but I wanted to get more specific in this video. So how do you actually stop yourself? You could just say, I'm just gonna do it. But you have to really get into your mind and see what is keeping this perfectionism locked in place. So here's the 5 things I talk about in the article. Number 1, there is a hidden payoff to perfectionism. This is behind, I think, any personal growth or any really, really in-depth, effective personal growth has to take you to kind of the dark side of things. It can't all be sunshine and rainbows and just believe in yourself. It's not effective. You have to see the dark side of things. And the dark side of perfectionism is that there is a payoff to it. If you are perfection, this is like movie critics, right? Like a movie critic, somebody, I'm always amazed at this, having a background in film, somebody could, make this amazing movie that cost millions of dollars and thousands of people worked on it. And one critic can just be like, it sucks. They don't have to do anything to criticize. Criticizing is super easy. And that's what your mind is doing all the time. And the hidden payoff of perfectionism and being sort of a critic is that it keeps you safe. That's really the big payoff. And that's, movie critics are a lot of movie critics, I was learning about this, are people who wanted to be filmmakers, but they couldn't make it. And so they become critics. It's much safer, it's much easier, Federico Fellini did the opposite. He's a famous Italian filmmaker. He was a movie critic who became a filmmaker, which is amazing. But when you're in, the hidden payoff, being a critic or being a perfectionist, is that if everything always has to be perfect, you get to stay safe. There's a really great episode of How I Met Your Mother where Ted is about to launch his architect firm, and he spends all this time getting the right letterhead and the right stationery and the right pens because he just does not want to make that first phone call to try to get a client because he doesn't want to fail. And they talk about this in the episode. They say, you're going to fail. You're going to get the pain of failure somewhere. It's just natural. in any endeavor. I've talked about this. Michael Jordan talks about it. He's missed game-winning shots. Everybody fails. But when you're in the world of perfectionism and you have this little fantasy in your head, if you don't take any action, you are safe and everything seems to be perfect. But in reality, you're probably very unhappy and very fearful, and it's not a good situation. So you have to become aware of the hidden payoff and give it up to say, I'm getting the payoff of safety from being a perfectionist, and I'm just going to give it up. And I'm going to say, you know what? I might not be safe. This may not be, it's definitely not as safe as, hiding in my room and not doing anything, but I'm going to do it anyway. When you see that you're doing that, and you're getting a payoff, that gives you an access to some power. If you just try to push through and go, I'm just going to do it, but you don't realize that part of you is like so invested in the safety, then that's why it's very difficult. But if you're like, you know what, I consciously, my intention is to give up this attachment to the safety, you will feel more free. You'll feel probably afraid too, but you'll feel more free. That's number one. Number two, understand that your perfectionism is a result of fear and conditioning. Cultural conditioning, family conditioning. We're conditioned like this in school. You're conditioned to seek approval from the teacher, get good grades. If you're not perfect, if you don't get the A, you're bad. Some people, you see some of the most high-achieving people in academia, in school, are these super insecure overachievers who are just trying, again, they're running, similarly to the first one, running from fear and running from disapproval and running from not being perfect. What I say in this article, I talk about how some of my best teachers are like one of my best friends and business partners and another business partner are guys who did terribly in school, had horrible grades, but they're super confident and super self-reliant because they never invested their identity in getting good grades. They gave that up. They're like, I'm never going to get good grades. I'm never going to get that approval. So these guys are much easier. It's much easier for them to be entrepreneurs and to make mistakes because they were always making mistakes when they were growing up. I got really good grades when I was in school. It screwed me up for a long time. Some of you guys might be able to relate to that. Number three. So let me just hold on. So I'm going to just finish number two. See, this isn't perfect, right? This video isn't perfect. Perfectionism, fear and conditioning. So remember, it's fear and conditioning, meaning you were trained to be this way. That's kind of what I was saying. My point is, I wanted you to really get that. You were trained to be a perfectionist. No kid is naturally a perfectionist. When you're like 2 and you're like, walking around like a drunken person, you know how kids are, screaming and yelling. You don't care if you're perfect or not. You had to be taught how to be a perfectionist so you can unteach it. That's really important too. Because a lot of us start just identifying that, I'm a perfectionist, I'll never change that, and then you're stuck with it. No, you're not, if you don't want to be. Number 3 is the trick of perfectionism is this idea that you have to wait until everything is perfect. And, this is basically, I like to think about how Johnny Carson, who is this very, very biggest entertainer in the world when your grandparents were growing up, he hosted The Tonight Show before Jay Leno or Jimmy Fallon. He would smoke cigarettes every single night before he went on because he was so nervous up to before he went on stage. He was so nervous. And when I was making my movie, I felt a lot of dread and discomfort. A lot of actors express these feelings, athletes. There's all sorts of uncomfortable feelings that you experience as a human being when you want to perform or do something or create something. And perfectionism is going to try to stop you from taking action because it'll be like, no, we can't do anything until that feeling goes away. And I'm here to tell you that it's just very powerful to just be like, I accept these feelings of discomfort. Let's move ahead. Number 4, be a scientist. This is really powerful. This is just being objective. Because perfectionism is a delusion. Like I said, it's disconnected from reality. So, and again, this is why, it said an award-winning athlete could come off a bad game and think to themselves, I stink, I'm no good, rather than thinking, I just had a bad game. So what you want to do is, when I see, I'm doing it right now. What you want to do, guys, be a scientist. What I mean is look at the facts about something. Most of the time, what you're thinking about yourself, is so, if you think negative things about yourself, which most of us do, it's so unwarranted. It's so undeserved, right? It's literally like, you know how you are in your own head. Everyone's like this. You're so harsh on yourself. It's like you make one mistake and your brain is like, you suck. You should never try this ever again. You're like, you never would talk like that to another person. So you need to actually look at your results in something. Like when I launched my film school program, I had a lot of doubts because, I hadn't become a famous filmmaker. I didn't have much success, but I knew I could help newcomers. I knew I could help newcomers avoid the mistakes that I had made. So I had to push through, a lot of my own doubts and insecurities. And one of the really interesting thing was that I had a typo in my presentation. I actually had a lot of typos in my presentations. And I remember the perfectionist in me would have like shut down the program and been like, oh my God, I have to redo everything and it's terrible. When I realized I actually had helped hundreds and hundreds of people change their lives, and nobody cared about the typographical errors, except like one guy who was like, because you misspelled peanut, I can't learn from you. I'm like, dude, that's a perfectionist. That is the insanity of perfectionism. In reality, you want to look at the actual results of something that happened. Even if you're learning something new, or you're doing digital marketing, right? You're in my course. Don't listen to your mind that's like, oh, you'll never learn this. You're no good. Be like, I built a website. I ran a campaign. I had a business. I got them 3 leads. That's a fact. Your mind saying, oh, you're not good enough at this and you don't know what you're talking about. So that's all conjecture. If this was a courtroom, conjecture means like it's not a fact. It's just hearsay. It's just something someone made up, an opinion. So get connected to the facts, and you will usually find that the facts are in your favor. And the last thing is, do not try to relax, numb out, or meditate away perfectionism. I'm a big advocate of meditation and relaxation. But when it comes to how we deal with things in our culture, we're an avoidant, drug-addicted, wussy culture, in my opinion. Like, we don't like to face things head on. And one of the big problems I have with perfectionism is that people, again, they try to run away from it. They try to numb it out. But you're better off accepting that it's just part of the game of life, is that you're going to have these feelings. A star athlete, right, is on the court playing basketball or football. They have to deal with all the noise in the stand. They can't be like, look, I can't focus. Jordan was never like, I can't shoot this basketball until you all shut up and let me shoot the basketball. He just dealt with 50,000 people either cheering for or against him. And that's how every athlete in the world performs. And that's how you have to be in the world when you're doing your thing. Just like you guys, you're pursuing digital marketing. Maybe you dropped out of college and your family and your friends is like, oh, this is a terrible idea. You should go back to school. You can't give in to what they're saying or get mad that they're saying it because they're just doing what they're doing. You gotta just accept it. And when your mind becomes perfectionist, which is what it's going to do, it's trying to protect you. That was actually one of the other key points. Again, this is a very long article. I should have mentioned that earlier. But at the end of the day, remember, this is, I guess, part of part 5. Your mind is just trying to protect you. Perfectionism is trying to protect you from a perceived danger, which to the mind and the ego, like any mistake can be, you're also dealing with biology, guys. We're a species that's very young, and 100,000 years ago or whatever, or even 500 years ago, mistakes, you could die so easily as a human, right? You're foraging for food and you're you're on the hunt, but then a tiger comes and attacks you or something, or you eat the wrong mushroom and you die. There are so many ways to die, and that's all in our DNA, right? So this translates to you taking my course and you're like, oh, I don't know which keyword to pick. Oh my God, or which website did I work on? And now you're relating to it like you're a caveman who's worried about feeding yourself and avoiding being attacked by a tiger or something. And it's part of the lizard brain. But it's trying to protect you. So you need to just be bigger than that part of you that's trying to protect you. Be bigger, which means to say, thank you. I see what you're trying to do. I don't need protection from making a mistake or filling out my resume wrong or getting a rejection in a job interview. I don't need protection from that. I seek that mistake so I can learn and grow and get better. And be present to the perfectionism. The more present you are with the perfectionism, instead of trying to run away from it, numb it out, the less power it has over you. You see it, you get distance from it, you get space from it, and you're able to be yourself and do what you would do, not what the perfectionism wants you to do. So I have a link to the article below. I've got a lot more insights in there, but that is a little bit of a summary of my tips on how to stop being perfectionist. And I hope this has been helpful for you. Please leave your comments below. Let me know if this was helpful for you. And I encourage you guys, whatever's holding you back, if you're overthinking things, if you think you need to wait till you're perfect to do anything, whether it's take my course or pursue anything in your life that you have been putting off, try these tips, see if it helps, and take some action, guys. There's no time like the present. I know it's a cliche, but it's true. The perfectionist part of you will have you continuously procrastinating and putting things off, when in reality, you are more than able to handle whatever it is that you want to pursue. So this is Seth. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon.